Welcome back, everybody. Now I invite two more panelists for this panel discussion. Our founder president, Mr. Santana Krishnan, who is the old hand at shrimp exports. He is quite knowledgeable about the export markets and supply situation in various parts of the world, and how the markets are dipping and how the markets are going. I mean, he knows it all. And we have other panelists from MPDA, the Joint Director, Mr. Anil Kumar. He is also going to join the panel. Can we get started with the panel?
Sure, we should.
Yeah, but people are not there. I mean, Center, can you bring in all the speakers, please? Center?
Yeah, everybody's online.
Everybody's online. I'm not able to see them. Welcome back for the panel discussion. We had a wonderful session. Everybody seemed to be enjoying. I'm getting messages from different participants. And we wouldn't have asked for a better panel than this. We have, the 14th most powerful man in the seafood industry. I mean, who has given the keynote address, Dr. George Chamberlain. I mean, probably he is one guy who understands the supply side and demand side of the shrimp better than anybody in the world. I don't get to see anybody who understands both sides of the market that well, And we have two analysts, one analyst from Europe and other analyst from US. And we have a CEO of a seafood company from China. Though he's a Taiwanese guy, he's working as a CEO of Global Seafoods in China. And we have our founder president, and we have one from government, the joint director and PDA. Can we get started? I mean, see, if you look at India has a great potential to go further. I mean, we have untapped potential farming areas, and we have installed capacities. If you look at the hatcheries, they can produce close to about 150 million. Right now, we're producing about 70 million or so. Our feed mills have installed capacity to produce about 2.5 million tons. Right now, the market size is about 1 to 1.2 million tons. And our exporters have state-of-the-art facilities, and they can handle a volume of even 1.5 million tons a year. So if you want to really up our ante, we need to really penetrate into all the markets. So what India as an industry has to do to penetrate more in each of the markets, probably I'll start with Dr. George Chamberlain. He can give a comprehensive viewpoint what India can do to up its ante. And then we'll go to the other speakers. They can tell us what India can do as an industry to increase penetration in the respective market. And we'll end up with our founder president and Anil. Over to you, George.
Thank you, Ravi. And it's a pleasure being part of this this panel. I enjoy looking at all the wonderful speakers, and I've learned a lot listening to this. Thank you for having me this morning. Of all the points that were made, one of the ones that resonated with me the most was Willem's point about the issue of antibiotic residues. And I think, this is an uncomfortable one to discuss, but I think it's important to take it head on and to think about, how to address this, because right now it may be mainly a problem in the EU, but it can also surface in the US, and it can affect the value of the brand. So, a couple of quick points. I think that, there's no single silver bullet when it comes to this stuff. As some of you know, I've been involved in the breeding side, and I happen to think that, but I'm no longer, so whatever I say has no vested interests. But I do believe that using specific pathogen tolerant shrimp that are also SPF and that also have a strong growth potential can help relieve the bacterial infections and also the EHP infection. So, and the breeders have these stocks. I know, speaking from the Kona Bay side, that Kona Bay spent the last 4 years developing an SPF SPT stock. I think that would be a start, but then carrying this through into the hatchery. Robbie will know very well, making sure the biosecurity is under tight control, testing, if not every batch, testing frequently to make sure that there are no notifiable pathogens. And then I think when we get to the farm is kind of a big challenge, because India has so many small farms. And I think this is where MPETA needs to weigh in. And and I know the government, MPETA, is working on a certification program, already has one for hatcheries, has something for farms. Here's just an idea. Why not try to link MPETA and outside third-party certification bodies like BAP, possibly ASC might be interested, Global Gap, maybe some of the rating systems. I know Seafood Watch is interested. Why not try to work together to let MPETA work with the very small producers and do an initial round to make sure that they're in compliance? And then a subsampling system could be used where a third party could come in and do a verification audit. And then you could have a very inexpensive way to get small farms into the international supply system. But I think it goes beyond certification. I think we need education, we need training, we need diagnostic testing, and so somehow working with MPETA and developing zoning. You know, if you look at what's happening in the salmon world, for example, in Chile, where, you know, control of the ISA and the rickettsial diseases and the heavy use of antibiotics, it's all revolved around zone management. So we get the society farms joining together into neighborhoods into bigger zones. And then you can begin to manage, you can begin to educate, you can begin to do diagnostic testing, even residue testing. So I think tackling the antibiotic issue is something we should work on. It's not easy, it's a complex problem, and you have to take it for the whole value chain. As I said, beginning with breeding, and then when you get into the farming area, then I don't see any alternative than to try to work with government. And I believe MPETA might be the logical entity. And then I would say on the marketing side, there's no alternative aside from a mandatory marketing system. There's been some discussion about, well, what about an India brand versus an Ecuador brand? They're different. Well, the same is true in avocados. You know, avocados come from different sources. You have Mexican avocados, you have Peruvian avocados, many different sources, but they still have a generic marketing program. And the way that fund works, the fund has portions of it that are designated for each of the major exporting countries. So a portion of that fund can specifically promote Mexican avocados or Peruvian or, you know, Indian shrimp versus Ecuadorian shrimp. There's room for branding within a generic marketing program. I don't think one is exclusive of another. And there's also room for individual company branding. I'm going to pause there, Robbie, because I know you have a lot of questions and a lot of other viewpoints.
Thank you very much, George, for your viewpoints. And over to Angel. I mean, how can we increase the penetration in US market, you know? Can you share some thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, I'm not a marketing expert, but this is coming from I guess from talking to a lot of people, since a lot of my job for many years was basically gossiping about fish or meat or eggs or whatever that was at the time. But a few months ago, somebody asked me, it's like, should we promote, should we say, should we like market it by country, just like George said right now? And George made the example of avocados from Mexico, and I'm from Mexico, and I know those guys, and I work with, for example, the Mexican beef exporters, and they all got together, but they're 12 companies, right? So there are 12 companies that get together, so it's easier, it's not as fragmented. So that's an advantage that they had. So the same goes for like Uruguayan beef producers. The Ecuadorians made a pretty good move there. My issue with some of that is that sometimes you can open a can of worms because you say, you know, this is shrimp from India, consume shrimp from India, for instance. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, but somebody is like, well, you know what? You know that, you know, the shrimp from India has, you know, it's treated product. It's not chem-free, and then that spills out over the media, and then everybody loses, right? There's not only the shrimp from India, but it's like shrimp in general, and then it spills into like seafood, and then so I don't know what the right way is to do this, but I didn't know about, and probably because I left the sector for like a year, but I didn't know about this, the expert marketing person from the avocado side. And I would go that way. I would totally go that route. You know, a consultant that knows this how to market product. But as long as they understand the sector. The problem with the sector of shrimp is that it's very, very segmented. And segmented, what I mean by that is that, you know, you can name 50 good large importers in the U.S. versus and how many farms in India, and how many you know, big processors. So getting together is probably going to be complicated, but it's not impossible. So well, that's my. There's no answer for me, but it's just, I'm just pointing out what the can of worms, like the potential difficulties would be, but going with an expert on that would be probably the right way to do it.
Very good. Now we'll move to Willem. Already has explained at length in his presentation. Can you be brief? Can you give a brief description, Willem? What we can do to increase or further penetration in European market? Willem, are you there? Otherwise, I'll move to Vincent Lin.
No, here I am.
Oh, very good.
I had to unmute, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that if you speak about market penetration in Europe, it's mainly about the retail segment, no? Because India is already the biggest supplier of raw peeled shrimp to Europe. That is primarily going into wholesale at the moment. And of course, the big market that's there for India to take a share of is retail. So of course, the first thing is these legal requirements, but then you are not there, because if you ask a retail purchase manager at the moment in Belgium or the Netherlands or Germany, they will, if you ask them like, where do you think that you can buy the best shrimp? They will probably all say Vietnam. That's where they are buying at the moment, and that's a matter of perception. No, it's a matter of perception that's being influenced by these EU measures that are in place, but also by a perception of the actual quality of the product. And I think that is something where India really has something to gain that can help to actually expand that market in Europe. And so if I'm speaking about marketing, I'm not entirely thinking along the same line as George or Angel. That's I think primarily consumer marketing, but I think in Europe a major challenge is to convince the purchase managers that India is actually a source for really good shrimp, that not only on the price, because that India is cheap, that's what most people know for peeled raw shrimp, but that is actually a product with quality, with traceability, with responsibility of practices in which the factories are socially compliant with the standards, and that is where I think that a joint marketing initiative of the Indian industry. That's not in the hands of MPDA or of the Exporters Association, but that's in the hands of many of the stakeholders in India, where you can really make easy steps, to make quick steps to actually better position yourself in that retail market in Northwestern Europe. And of course, maybe it's abundant to say, but the retail market in Northwestern Europe, if you don't have ASC certification and ASC chain of custody, you don't have to start thinking about it, because it's a must-have. It's not a nice-to-have, it's a must-have.
Very good insights, Willem. Now we would move to Vincent Lin, and how we can increase the penetration in Chinese market, Vincent.
Okay. I think I would like to remind 2 points. One is, currently in Chinese people's view, India shrimp is indeed the position in the lowest, in terms of quality, in the lowest position. Why? Because in the past, quite many Chinese importers have bad experience with India shrimp. The problem is that most of the time, the Chinese importer that are not satisfied with the product they receive when they open the container. They maybe have good impression when they visit the factory in India, but time after time, in many occasions, when the shipment arrives in China, when they open the container, the quality is not consistent with what they have seen when they visit the factory in India. That's the first point. I think India shrimp exporter must find a way to make your quality be consistent. And the second point is, for Chinese people, they recognize and appreciate quality. And the most important quality criteria for general Chinese people is the color. If for raw shrimp, they prefer the deep color, a color looks like a little bit of blue and gray. And when cooked, the redder is the better. So when I say consistent product, consistent quality, if you notice this color issue to Chinese consumers is so important, then maybe you can start with, for every container export to China, you would rather let the color of all the shrimp in the same container be consistent with each other than to put in some shrimp with very good color, but mixed with some other shrimp with lighter color. What I say is conformity of color. So that's the 2 points I think I can remind India shrimp exporter.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Now we'll move on to our founder president, Mr. Santana Krishnan. Chief, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, just waiting.
Yeah, Chief, go ahead.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Nice to be a part of this panel, and thanks for inviting me to be one of the panel member. I have a few questions and some suggestions also. First thing is to take a lead from Dr. George's presentation on the avocado, the model. The Government of India, the Ministry of Agriculture, is planning to have number of farmer producer organizations, we call FPOs. So this is being taken up under the new scheme, which is launched by the Government of India. And they're also planning to pay some sort of incentive or subsidy to a tune of almost 150,000 US dollars per FPO, farmer producer organization. So this is they are trying to bring in the agriculture model into aquaculture also. So this includes shrimp as well as fish. So I hope this, once these FPOs are being actually comes into place, this could pave way as one of the first stepping stone to the farmer producer organizations to take it forward to the international markets and then present themselves. I think there is something we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's something is happening now on these FPOs. The second thing is taking into William's wonderful presentation. What I see is the biggest hurdle what we have is the antibiotic testing in Europe. But what we need to understand is we should not accept the black paint being painted on India that Indian shrimps are antibiotics tainted. I think everybody in the market should know why India has been put under the alert list of 50% compulsory inspections. It's not because of number of antibiotics that has been tested in the shrimps. If you take the import alerts, every country has got many countries imports they have. But I think the main reason was the European Union was not convinced with the existing controls or surveillance in India. That's very, very important. So it's not on the producer. It's also, we need to establish a system that India has enough surveillance systems and controls in place to control the antibiotics. This is the message which we should take it forward as a farmer, as well as a processor to the government, to make some sort of a given assurance to the EU authorities that there is enough control and surveillance that is available. William, you can correct me if there is anything to be added on that.
I fully agree. Fully agree.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Third is what I see is the average size of the shrimp that is being harvested and exported. This is a big concern. Traditionally, India has been a producer of big size shrimps. In fact, farmers from Gujarat, like Dr. Manoj and Mr. Saji, who are here as part of us, they would agree that farming shrimps in Gujarat is very expensive. That's on the northwestern coast of India. So the break-even cost is very high. You need to produce the shrimps minimum to 22 gram size. But you see the decline in the food service sector, and which demands mostly the bigger size shrimps, and more of retail sector, which requires a smaller size shrimps. The average harvest size of shrimps in India this year, I feel the second half, has come to almost 12 to 15 gram size. So that is being preferred by the exporters also, because that's what the market needs. So how are we going to address this issue in the future in terms of what should be the average size of the shrimps if you're going for any emergency harvest? So these are the 3 points which I would like to put forward to the panel for any such discussion.
Thank you very much, Chief. Now we'll move on to Joint Director and PDA, Mr. Anil Kumar.
Hi. Yeah. Good evening and good morning. It's very nice to see you, at least see you all virtually at least, because we are not able to travel and meet together. So thanks to SAP for giving me this opportunity. Now, coming back to, most of the speakers, eminent speakers before me have answered the question of market penetration. So I don't have much to say, but still I would like to emphasize on our export performance during the last 3-4 months, that is April to June. When we look at the figures, we see that there is a decline of about 15% in terms of value for shrimp. I'm talking exclusively about shrimp exports. So there is a decline of 15% shrimp exports, which I can say is more almost from the raw material is almost from culture only, because there was no capture fishery during this time, because very little boats were going to sea for fishing. So that is one thing. And when coming to market penetration, I would say that, let me start with the product side. When I looked at the import trends in US, I can see that there is a, when I compare from April-June 2019 and April-June period of 2020, the segments of conventional products, they're showing a decrease. But two items are showing increase. One is cooked item, which is showing an increase of 14% during this three months period when compared to the previous year. And the other item is breaded shrimp, 10% increase. So 10% for breaded, 14% for cooked shrimp. So I think one of the things which we need to do for short term is to focus on these products, which I think generally in all other markets also will be showing the same trend. And that is one. And the second aspect I would like to highlight is during Mr. Pawan's presentation, he was talking about China. And Mr. Vincent Lee, of course, gave a very insightful presentation. China has become the second largest market. We reached almost $1.3 billion exports during last financial year, out of which $813 million were only for shrimp exports to China. Now, we are, from Empeda side, we were meeting with the importers as well as government people, of course, virtually. So last week we had a meeting with one of the importers. So the same suggestion as Mr. Vincent gave, there is going to be a good demand, steady demand for head-on, good quality raw material, head-on cooking quality shrimp. I think this is something we should focus on. Of course, the sizes are going to be smaller for China. So this is something we need to focus. And regarding again, especially with reference to China, I would say that we need to, especially with our exporters, I would suggest that we need to focus on the COVID aspects, because I understand in our meetings with government representatives of China, as well as the trade representatives of China, there is a great concern for contamination of COVID in the imported consignments. Let us keep the fact that whether COVID detected in the outer packaging of an imported master carton, will it, have a food safety, or will it have a health safety issue or not? The science behind is separate. I'm talking about the market perception. One of the importers was saying that when salmon from Norway was, the news of salmon from Norway was, with COVID in the packaging came to the media, immediately he was saying that the market demand came down by 85%. It went down by 85%. So we need, from Indian side, I would urge all the exporters to take maximum care to have any detection of the containers for COVID in China. Now, what have we done for it? From Empeda side, we have come out with a guideline for COVID, preventing COVID in the seafood consignments, based on the international guidelines of WHO, FAO, and all that. So we have, circulated it among the exporters, as well as we have started a kind of online training program. We did the training program last week, and we have also apprised the Chinese authorities that we are taking enough precautions. So that will also help us to increase our presence, market presence in these markets. And finally, of course, everybody is talking about the antibiotic issue, and especially with reference to Mr. George Chamberlain's suggestions. It's a welcome suggestion. And I think this antibiotic, and I would call it antibiotic and biosecurity issue, A and B issues. We have to see both together. Antibiotic is one issue, and equally important is a biosecurity issue. Why? Because more than 6-7 countries require shrimp consignments free of OIE listed pathogens, mainly WSSV free pathogens. For example, China itself has detected WSSV in some consignments. Almost 12 companies have been delisted from exporting to China. So we need to see both antibiotic as well as biosecurity issues together rather than separately. You shouldn't see antibiotic issue alone. That is what my suggestion is. And I think, I've taken a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anil Kumar. Thanks for your viewpoints. I'll ask Mr. Pawan Kumar to, give a brief view about this. Is Mr. Pawan Kumar there? Okay, otherwise we'll go to the next question, what our chief has raised, our founder president has raised. I mean, a lot of people have asked in the question answer box as well. I mean, what is the size that is preferred in the market today? Because that is going to help our farmers for taking a harvesting decision. Apart from that, it would help them to plan a certain stocking density. What is the kind of density they have to plan for? I mean, if they know the preferred size that can be sold in the market, I mean, they can plan their stocking densities. So I think this is going to be a very important question because a lot of participants are looking for the answer for this question. So we'll start with Angel and then go to Willem, then we'll come to Vincent, Angel.
Sure. And the US is, as always, like in Texas, the bigger the better. That's the preference, right? They like the 1620s and the 21s and the 26s. But they were mentioning before, I think it has to be a market-driven approach. I mean, and you get that through the price signals. The price should be letting you know what the market wants and so on and so forth. But I mean, the preference in the US is always for the larger sizes, but depends for in what use and whatnot. But if you're going to retail, you're going to get whether it's a ring or you're going to get a 1 pound bag or a 1 pound bag. People aim for the 21s, the 26s, 16s. I mean, they might be a little large, but whenever I talk about this, I never give like a clear-cut answer because I don't think there is one. Because at the end of the day, it will come to price. If somebody's going to eat shrimp and it's going to give themselves that luxury per se, and it's promoted, and if it's a 41.50 and it's at the right price, they will eat that. And if if a restaurant, the price point is too high for a 26 to put 3-4 shrimp in a plate, but they say, you know what, if it's 20 cents or 40 cents lower to buy a 41 and I can add more, so be it. It depends on those values. But for the most part, I would say the 21s and 26s, it's basically that benchmark, and then aside. But 41s is also like a good benchmark for shell-ons. So I hope I answered the question as clear cut as I could, but that's as close as I can get.
Thank you. I mean, if George is there around, he can answer this question as well, but he's leaving. I think I just saw the message, and we'll go to Willem. Thank you, Angel. It's a good answer. I mean, bigger sizes can still be sold in US. That's your message. Big. Yeah, George, go ahead.
I wonder if I could just make one comment, because I think I might have left the impression that India is unique in having very bad antibiotic problems. And I don't want to leave that impression at all. In fact, in our testing, in the BAP program, we test actual antibiotic residues from the processing plant of every certified facility every year. and we have gotten quite an archive of data. And we actually show India is less than other Asian countries. But and the good news is that the rates have been coming down from something like 6.4% in 2017 to 5.4% in 18 to 1.4% incidence in 2019. So the rates have been declining. So that's great news, but it still is there, and we still need to do more. So I don't want to give India a black eye about this. I just want to show it's another area for improvement. And thank you for having me. I just need to sign off now to join another event. Thank you so much.
It's a great honor to have you here, George. Thank you very much.
Thank
We really appreciate it.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
And now we go to Willem for knowing the preferred sizes in European market.
Yeah, so I think in general, in Northwestern Europe, in wholesale, whether it's headless shalom, easy peel, or whether it's PD or PUD, it's actually always 21 to 26 per kilogram, and that's done with a 20% glaze, of course. And it depends on the wholesaler, whether it's a real count or a frozen count, but I guess the majority is still on the frozen count. If you look in retail, which of course now sales are increasing, it's a different ball game. So I think that the frozen products in retail are slightly smaller than in wholesale. So it will be closer to the 26-30 than to the 21-26. But if you look in the fresh counter, so the refreshed counter is actually much smaller sizes. So it's 41.50 and smaller than that. And that's for the especially the PD, of course. So it's you have a job to do, Ravi, to calculate from all those product counts to the live weight equivalent count, of course. Which is not so easy, because the more you treat for the wholesale segment, the smaller the count of shrimp. No, so I think it's you need to add a couple of counts to the actual calculation. Yeah, but in general, there's a trend due to the shift to retail. I would say for the next year or for the next 6 months. So let's say for the first crop of 2021, I expect a higher demand for smaller sizes, and small is then 41, 50, 50, 60, etc.
Yeah, that is our 70 counts, and then 56, 57 counts head on. You know, so the mid sizes are going to be in demand, is what you're saying. Mid sizes and smaller sizes. You know, whereas it comes to US, it's still the bigger sizes. But you know, even US market, if you look at Anil, as it is, you know, shifting from food service to retail, probably the preference of size could be small.
Yeah, and I was trying to. That's one of the charts that I was showing. What you do is you or what I do at least is look at that's why I use price ratios between the sizes to see what the market is actually demanding, right? Relative to each other, right? Because you never see like when a price is too high or too low. It's always relative to something else. And that's why I did the 1620s relative to like the 71s or the 21s versus the 41s to look at that. And then you see that you're pushing for larger sizes way too much, and you're overcrowding that market for a while. And then you see that through prices, and it's like, okay, well, let's shift a little to the medium or smaller sizes, because that's what the market is demanding. I mean, forget about what they're telling you. This is just a price signal telling you that even if it's more cost effective, that's not what the market wants, right? And it also, the presentation, like William said, whether it's like, if it's a cooked thing, if it's an easy peel, or it's a PUD. And so it all depends on the product forms. And if you see it in a berry, that's why we quote every single size and every single presentation, even if it's a tail off, right? So you look at those signals relative to each other, and then you're like, well, this is what the market wants. I know the turnaround is not immediate, but if you saw during COVID-19, like at the very beginning, India turned around the cooked product immediately. Like by July, we had all that product right here. So that was not planned. So that's a very quick turnaround, and that's good. So you can see the market signals right away. So that's why I didn't want to say like, oh, we prefer larger size, so you should focus on larger sizes. Like, no, there's preference for the larger sizes, but you should follow the market directions at any given point in time, right? So.
Thank you very much for your insights. Now, we'll try to listen from Mr. Vincent Lin, what China's preference is, what Chinese market's preference is as far as sizes are concerned. Vincent?
Generally, yes. Generally, people will think Chinese, like the other people in the world, prefer large size. That's right. But actually, 31 to 40 and 41 to 50 are always the largest quantity item in China. But beside this information, I would like to suggest India shrimp plan. You can focus on a very special, unique need in China market. That is small size P&D, like 100 or 81 to 100, even 150 P&D has huge demand in China because China use small size P&D to make shrimp dumpling, 虾饺. Big dumpling or small dumpling, 虾饺, 虾仁烧麦. And because cost consideration, one small shrimp dumpling can use only one shrimp. So if the shrimp is too big, the shrimp dumpling will become too expensive. So for this type of product, they prefer small size P&D shrimp. And I know India sometimes has rush harvest and produce too much small size shrimp. Maybe you can consider use this small size shrimp to process to be small size P&D. And there are huge demand in China.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And, you know, we really appreciate your patience. I mean, we kept you awake. We know it is about 11 o'clock in the night, and you've been patient and still giving very smart answers, you know. We really appreciate. And even your colleagues in Hong Kong are still there, I think, watching our panel discussion. I really appreciate all of them for being part of it, you know, though it is late in the night. And what we got to understand is, the market for every size. Smaller sizes can be sold to China, and mid sizes can be sold to Europe and US. And the cowboys of US, they still require the bigger sizes, you know. So, I mean, there is room for every size, you know. You need to see, I mean, which market requires which size, you know. I mean, our exporters are quite good at that. That's one of the reasons why we're able to, increase the size of our industry. This year is a different scenario. I mean, COVID has thrown a spanner into our works. Otherwise, we've been doing pretty good. So there is another question from the audience. What they're asking is, if a percentage of the farmers switch over to monodon, the tiger, is there room in the market, international market, say about 20-30% of the farmers in India to switch over to monodon? Is there a room in the market? I mean, do we have that size niche for monodon? That's the question some of the participants are asking. I mean, again, we will start with Anil, then we'll go to Willem, and then we'll go to our founder president as well. At the end, we will ask Vincent. I mean, Vincent also could give us good insights into that and help.
Okay. Well, those are big shrimp, right? Those are larger for the most part. You're talking, 15 U15s and larger, all the way to like 6s and 8s and all that. Here in the US, there is not that much of a market for that, especially now, because that would go to like very expensive restaurants, to like your tablecloth and your hotels, and a lot of like business travel. They depend a lot on business travel. Is there a market? Of course, there's a market, but it's a niche market, if you will. So, and that's like that's there. That's like settled basically. So I don't think there's that much more growth in the US for that, especially now, for most of those sizes specifically. So no.
Thanks, Angel. And we'll go to Willem, because Europe is one market that buys substantial quantities of Monodon, Black Tiger. So Willem, you can give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity in the European market, especially in Northwestern Europe. So not that much. It goes as far south as France. France, of course, also has a big market of Monodon, but that is mainly supplied from Madagascar. And then you have everything north of France. So that's the UK, Netherlands, Belgium, Germany. That absorbs, I think, about 70% of the shrimp from Bangladesh, which is almost entirely Monodon. Monodon production in Bangladesh is really declining. It's really struggling there because of several reasons, which means that in Europe, what you have seen happening is that for a long time, like wholesalers, because it's mainly a wholesale product, they had both species. They had Vaname and Monodon. But of course, with the price discrepancy getting bigger, many of the wholesalers for the sizes that are there in both species have shifted to Vaname. But still, it's such a dynamic market that as soon as the size, the prices for the, let's say, the 21, 26 counts for wholesalers, especially the Asian wholesalers in Europe, they will switch back to Monodon. So I think the main thing that you have to keep in mind that there is no premium price for Monodon of the same size as Vaname. No, so if you can produce Monodon, let's say the bigger medium sizes, so 21, 26, 26, 30, if you can produce that at a similar price as Vaname, then there's definitely a big market for you. But if you are on a premium price there, it will be very difficult. So then it's especially the bigger sizes that are not there in Vaname, so it's 21 and bigger, basically, that there's still that market that you can take where you can compete with Bangladesh and with Vietnam for the European market. And that will be, I think you can get easy some market share there. But on the sizes that overlap, you need to be price competitive, because otherwise the buyers will simply buy Vaname.
Very good insight again. So what I got to understand is we really need to take it to 30 counts and beyond. But with the kind of farming conditions what we have, with a lot of diseases around, can we take the crop that long? I mean, be it Vaname or for that matter Monodon, because it is the diseases are not refractory in Monodon. I mean, all the diseases that are affecting Vaname are affecting Tiger as well. So can we take the crops that long to grow very big sizes of 20 count and all that to get a penetration?
But you know that in Ravi, you know that in Bangladesh you have the extensive farms.
Yes,
They mainly harvest the small sizes, so they mainly harvest up to 21 count. Everything bigger than 21 count is harvested by the semi-intensive farms. And the semi-intensive farms in Bangladesh, they stock with 20 to 30 per square meter. And they do decent volumes nowadays. No? So it should be possible for the semi-intensive farms with relatively low densities to produce the bigger sizes, as they are doing in Bangladesh. And you are now going to use Moana. Woodstock. No, so I guess that there should be opportunities actually to achieve good results there.
Thank you. We have Moana and we have Aqualma as well of Madagascar. And I would like to hear it from our founder president, I mean, his viewpoints.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ravi. I feel that volume is also very important. What sort of a volume we can produce. The second thing, major difference, what we should understand in the market is, for Vanami, there's a market from 10 grams to 40 gram size. That is the farmer who harvests the shrimp because of any uncertainty, diseases and all that. There's still a market they could buy to sell. But if you get into black tiger shrimp, you need to produce them to 25 gram size minimum. If you're going to have 10 gram, 15 gram black tiger shrimps, nobody's going to buy. So that is a big risk for the farmer to switch over into black tiger shrimp. That's one. And black tiger definitely enjoys some sort of a premium in certain markets. Mr. Vincent can say about their experience in the premium black tiger markets that could be there. So this is my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. Yeah, Anil Bhai, go ahead.
I have a question. You know, when we are talking about monodon, we are neglecting one significant market. It's Japan. How does our product, especially monodon, would be seen in the Japanese market? Since we have Mr. Anil Kumar from MPDA, I would like to ask him, his comments on the Japanese market in general, but also, especially about monodon.
Thank you, President.
Victorji, did you read my mind? I was about to talk about Japan market and raise my hand, and you asked this question. In fact, I just wanted to remind you all that we used to sell a lot of monodon from Bhimavaram side to Japan. And I would like to update you on the latest development. There used to be 100% testing for Indian shrimp, black tiger shrimp to Japan. A couple of months back, they have reduced it to 30%. And as per the law, another 1 or 2 years, they will reduce it to 0%. The reason why they have reduced the inspection rate is previous 2 years, there was no antibiotic positive for export to Japan for black tiger shrimp. I'm talking about black tiger shrimp. So there is, in my opinion, when I look at the unit value from Japan, the unit value is also good, and near about 30 count itself should fetch a good price for the exporter and the farmer. So there is an opportunity with Japanese market, and we should definitely try to explore that possibility. Especially the other aspect is SPF broodstock is going to come to India. So putting these two things together, definitely we should give it a try. That's I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll ask Vincent his views on
Yes.
monodon.
Yes. Please keep in mind, in China, Taiwan, Japan, and Korea, Hong Kong, monodon always has more premium positioning than variant. In China, with size beyond 30 counts, the price usually is about 20% higher than variant. And the demand is always there because before China cannot export that much shrimp originally, as I know, before 2005 or 2000, they farm monodon. Many farm monodon, so they have good image. They still keep the image of good quality of monodon. So maybe you can try develop monodon to China market. You can enjoy premium price in China. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Nia. And one of the last questions, what I would like to ask the panel is, if you look at the market is shifting from food service to retail during the pandemic. And now the households in most of the markets are getting used to shrimp consumption. And would this trend carry forward after the pandemic and increase the size of the market? Because the food service demand is going to come back differently once the pandemic is done with. Then also, the household consumption is going to be there now that they're getting used to it. Actually, Angel touched a little bit on it. So is pandemic going to contribute to increasing the size of the market in the long term? That's my question. Again, I would like to start with Angel.
I hope. To answer the question, I really hope. And usually there's some stickiness once you get some kind of like shocks like this with a big shock of demand, and there's usually some stickiness to it. But over time things will try to follow the same trend. I do hope that some of this sticks, but then again, I think that has to be addressed by like consumer survey companies like Nielsen and other experts on that aspect that talk to people. But there's two things. I mean, even if you ask the people, there's they're surveying people, and there's the answer to the survey, and there's the what people actually do. But what the numbers suggest is that right now it's very strong, and I'm sure some of this will long run, but I don't know. I hope. I really
Thank you.
do.
We all hope, Angel, for increasing the size of the market. That's what we're all looking at, because the market is stagnant. I mean,
Bring some balance and take away some of that reliability in food service so much.
Yes. So we'll ask Willem for his views. Willem.
Oh, yes, thank you, Ravi. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think that shrimp consumption, or let's say Vaname consumption in Europe, has seen an upward trend overall over the last couple of years, probably supported by the slightly lower price level. And I think that, yes, COVID may have a slight positive impact on that trend. But I do expect a small dip in retail sales next year when the situation is hopefully back to normal. But overall, I think with a slightly, if the prices do not get back to, let's say, pre-2018 levels, I guess that Vaname consumption overall will see good potential in the European market in the coming years.
Thank you, Willem. We would like to hear it from Vincent.
Okay, I'm afraid in China, things are not so optimistic, because I'm afraid even after COVID-19, although people will stick to the increasing seafood consuming at home, but they will not resume the level they consume seafood in the restaurant. And the people in China, when people have meal in restaurant, they eat a lot of seafood, usually, especially in coastal area. At least half of the dish in a banquet, in the dining out occasion, half of the dish are seafood. But at home, people doesn't eat so much seafood. Maybe they will at home. Maybe they will only, like, if they have 4 dishes, maybe they will 1 dish is seafood. So I think in China, the situation is not so optimistic, even after COVID-19.
Very good. Good to know. We were not aware of all these things, you know. Uh, Chief, Mr. Santana Krishnan, would you like to ask any questions to the panelists, Chief?
No, already they have explained about the markets, Rubio,
Yes.
Willem, and Vincent. It's very categorical. Each market has got a different what's going to happen post-COVID. Let's take those messages. Let's see how do we stay on with these. Thank you very much. That's it.
I think it's come to an end. I'm afraid it has come to an end, and I thank all the speakers for wonderful presentations and giving very good insights during the panel discussion. I mean, Vincent Lin was rocking in the panel discussion. I mean, a lot of things we were not knowing about China. I mean, he has explained us. I mean, he has enlightened us about Chinese market. And